Good morning, 8:23. I woke up this morning with a particular yearning for sorrel. But as usual happens with me, I'm inclined to get distracted by something the very next moment. So I decided that it was probably best if I get my morning started as I usually do with smoothie. The only problem was when I started to make the smoothie, I realized I was out of milk. Well, I realized that a couple of days ago, but it's only now that I actually decided to do something about it. So, I've been an alternative milk drinker for many, many years. Of course, as with most folks, it started with soy. But I graduated from soy at the recommendation of my naturopath and my natural physician, Dr. Wright. And moved on to almond milk. Later on went to test hemp milk and flax milk and oat milk. Almond milk is a favorite. Second favorite is oat milk. And hemp milk probably follows in third. It has a very unique flavor on the palate that you really have to get accustomed to. So, but once you become accustomed to it, you find out the versatility of, and ways that you can use it so that you can really accomplish what you're trying to do with either your baked dish or your soup, that you're trying to make more creamy, or your smoothie that you're just trying to give additional moisture to. So, in order to make my smoothie, I have to get going with my hemp milk. And that is what I intend to do. So, most of the oat milks, of course, you can do with like 1 cup of soaked nuts. I do a lot of walnut milk. Ooh, I left out macadamia milk. So when I was mentioning my favorite milks, macadamia is also a favorite. It's just very, very rich and creamy. But yeah, so with most of the nut milks, you can do like 1 cup of soaked nuts, soak them overnight. You can blend it against a quart of water, and that will give you your milk base, which you can strain. But hemp, the wonderful and unique thing about hemp is that you can make it on the fly. So you don't actually have to soak the hemp. So I'm just using some whole hemp hearts here from Manitoba Harvest. I don't know that there's any particular brand that I'm preferred to. Whatever hemp seed is available is what I usually get. Just want to throw a little on top here. I'm always inclined to do more rather than less, especially with hemp milk. If you do too little hemp seed in hemp milk, it's pretty unforgiving. It'll come out real thin. So I'm inclined to do a little bit more seed in there. I do 4 dates for sweetness. And of course, my 4 cups of water. Now, there was something that I saw this morning that I wanted to try. So, Kitchen Alchemy is all about experimentation. You really just have to be fearless with your experimentation and just be willing to try any particular new thing to figure out whether or not it works for you, whether or not it's nutritionally advantaged for you, whether or not you like the flavor, whether or not your children like it. So Kitchen Alchemy is about that fearless experimentation, that fearlessness in yourself, which will translate and transmit to that fearlessness in your family to be willing to try these other things with you. So something that I saw when I was poking around this morning, just browsing some food blogs, Detaching in particular was the reference where I got this one from. But they were talking about making an almond milk coffee creamer, and to make the milk creamier, what she did was add coconut oil. Now, you think about the popular animal milks, goat's milk is a very popular animal milk because it has a heavy fat content. It's still the preferred milk if you're going to be making kefir because of that fat content. So I'm going to try that this morning just because I want to see. I like rich milk. I like rich and creamy milks. So I wanted to try out that addition of the coconut oil just to see what it does for the milk. Because as I said, hemp milk can come out very thin, depending upon how much seed you're adding. And I just wanted to try that to see if I could increase the richness of the milk. So, let's throw our top on there. Extra long because I really like, the milk blended very well, the cheese blended very well. It'll release those flavors, cut those oils out of that cheese. Let it set a little bit, pulse it again. And when you're done, you got this wonderful creamy mixture here, and you're just going to get a nice pitcher. You can get a pitcher or you can get a bowl, it's your choice. Drop your nut milk bag in. If you don't have a nut milk bag, you can always go and get the local cheesecloth. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. Cheesecloth or just a pair of pantyhose, preferably unused. You just want something that's going to keep some of that nut pulp from straining through. If a little bit gets through, don't worry about it. It's all that fiber content is going to be good for you anyway. But yeah, so you want to drop that in there. And I like to do a patient strain, so I'm just going to let some of it drip through, and then, give it a couple of gentle squeezes at the top. Because if you squeeze it from the middle or the center anywhere, the milk will come right up out the top of this bag. Is that crazy? If you squeeze it too hard trying to push the milk through, hemp seed is very, very thin. So if you squeeze it too hard, what's going to happen is that hemp seed is going to squeeze right through the fibers of this bag, and it's I mean, like I said, that's not a terrible thing, but it just may not be the viscosity that you want for your milk. You know, it may not give you that filtered quality. When I'm done filtering, what I usually do with the nut pulp is I'll just put it in a bowl and drop it in the fridge. And you can put it in a morning smoothie later on. Sometimes I like to put fiber into my soups. So whenever I do soup, you know, I'll take leftover nut meal or leftover coconut meal that, you know, I made coconut milk or nut milks with, or the hemp seed, and I'll just drop it in my soup. And, you know, it gives it an additional fiber, you know, sometimes it can add a little different type of flavor. If you're worried that the sweetness of the dates is going to, you know, alter the flavor of your soup, you know, don't worry about that. The dates, they pretty much take to the flavor of anything that you put them in. Once you squeeze out most of their sugars, you know, in this juicing process. When I first started making the nut milks, it seemed like a cumbersome process, but the more that you do it, the more that you find that it's a very relaxing process. Oh, there's some milk jumping out. It's a very relaxing process, but also you find out that it's much easier than your initial assumption, your initial impression might have given you. It's quick, it's painless, and it's a lot lower priced than comparable quality or buying similar milks in the store. Plus, you know, you don't have to deal with that preservative factor. You don't necessarily know what they're putting in their milks. I mean, you know, do you really want to drink carrageenan? And you know the quality of the seed that you're getting. So, you know, if you're doing nut milks, you can get the freshest nuts possible. You can harvest nuts off the tree. You can, if you happen to have a walnut tree in your backyard, you know, you can go get you some walnuts off the tree, soak them overnight after you crack them, and haul them, and then, you know, wake up in the morning, get you some nut milk started. And once you're done with the nut milk, you know, once you're done with the hemp milk, rather, we're doing hemp milk today, you know, there are variations you can do on it. You can put, like, you know, some vanilla extract in here. Give it a little bit of vanilla flavor. You can, if you like additional sweetness, you can maybe add some maple syrup to it and, you know, sweeten it a bit there. Just, you know, like a tablespoon. You can add like 3 tablespoons of the cocoa powder and, you know, make you some chocolate milk. So cocoa powder and the maple syrup will go right together with that. Sometimes I sweeten it with stevia, you know. Depending upon how you feel about stevia, some people find it is very bitter. In particular, Jakaya, you know, she's not a great fan of stevia yet. We're still working on her, you know, working on her palate. But I think last time I did some chocolate milk with stevia sweetener, and she wasn't a fan of that. So we're getting down to the last bit of liquid, you know. You just keep going over it a bit, you know, because you want to get all that liquid out, as much liquid as you can. What happens is at the end here, the liquid is going to start getting a little bit thicker because you're going to be getting more oil than water out. More of the oil that was stuck inside of those hemp seeds is going to be coming out at this point. And when you feel that you've extracted as much as you're going to get, or when you feel that it seems like there's like a little bit of fiber coming out, you know, you want to stop there. And get your hands rinsed off. And I like to save these. I used to buy this, or sometimes I still do buy this nectar drink. You know, like they have the pear nectar, or you know they have apricot nectar, and they have these wonderful jars that they come in. And so you know I like to save those and get those all rinsed out, and I use them to store my nut milks. You know. Nut milks or any of my other concoctions, you know, any of the teas that I do, any of the other beverage drinks and such. I find it very useful to keep these jars around so that you can reuse them. They are 1 quart in size and they hold perfectly. So, that is our hemp milk. Use our cognac decanter to test this next glass of hemp milk. And so it's got a good color. You know, you can swirl it around there. It's not thin. That's the thing that, like I said, it's always you know, the thing to watch out for with hemp milk is the thinness of the consistency of it. If you find that the milk is too thin, use more than a half a cup. Like I said, I just throw in a bit of additional hemp seed in there, and you know, it can change the quality. Now, the hemp seed, as I said, if you haven't had hemp milk before, there's a very distinct flavor to the hemp seed, a distinct hemp seed flavor. And so if you've eaten hemp seed or you enjoy hemp seed, you will likely enjoy hemp milk, but you won't have a problem with it. But if you haven't had it before, give it a try. Test yourself, stretch yourself, extend yourself. Kitchen Alchemy is about that extension and that stretching and that experimentation and being unafraid to try these new things. Yes, so that's a good batch. That's a very good batch. And that bit of coconut oil that we added did seem to give it a nice thickness, a nice body. So I'm going to take, you know, I've got my smoothie, you know, container here. I've got some strawberries, some peaches, a bit of cantaloupe, some papaya, some blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, and some turnip greens in here, as well as my special vitamin powder that I mix up. You know, I mean, I just put it in a food processor and I blend up a vitamin powder with like sesame seed and millet, moringa, chlorella, amaranth. You know, just a bunch of grains and you know various dry greens. And you know, it makes a good vitamin powder to add some additional nutrients to your smoothie without necessarily going out and buying a specific multivitamin powder. So yeah, and I threw the turnip greens on top. I'm not very particular about which greens I put in my smoothie. I do very much like spinach, so you know, whenever I can, I'm throwing spinach in a smoothie. But turnip greens, collard greens, mustard greens, even dandelion greens, although they can be a bit bitter, they will all give their own sort of nutrient kick to your smoothie. So I'm going to fill this up with a bit of the hemp milk. And I'm making a mess over here, but Kitchen Alchemy is also about not being afraid to make a mess. Make a mess, clean it up. Got my diversity of blender bottoms here, that I can add to the top of my smoothie cup. I've got a standard Oster 12-speed blender here. There's nothing fancy about it. It wasn't very expensive. I know people who seem to have a fascination, with other types of blending devices or mixing devices, and that causes them to be hesitant to actually start the process of doing any nut milks or blending or juicing or smoothie making. But I'm against that. I'm against, blender elitism. Whatever blender you have, provided it has a good speed motor and that it's not ancient. I did have an ancient blender before this that I had to replace because it just did not have the capacity to blend the things that I wanted to blend. All of this fruit in here is frozen. So, I need a blender with a good speed, with a good horsepower, with a good kick, with a good motor. And eventually this motor is going to give out. But so far it served me well. It mixes up my smoothies in a great way, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed ownership, and like I said, it didn't cost a lot of money, so you don't have to make a big investment. You just have to be willing to experiment with your processes and find what's right for you and your blender. Shake it up. Sometimes I open it because those greens, probably should put the greens at the bottom just because they tend to get wrapped around the blade. So I'll open it up every now and then and just make sure that that wrapping is not occurring in my blender. It's about where I want it, but I like to go, as I said, thorough and consistent in all my blends. And there we have our smoothie. I should have added coconut to this, but oh well. Alright, so this has been the first episode of Kitchen Alchemy, the Primitive Progressive. Yeah, I don't know. There's some sort of blog name forthcoming and some sort of webpage forthcoming, all in due time. But yeah, stay experimental.